I was in high school thinking about what should I do with the rest of my life. I decided that I come from a loving family, but not a lot of money in my family. And I decided I wanted to be successful really quickly, and I figured the best way to do that was get involved in business. So I made a decision to get into sales because I worked out that sales is the opportunity to do extremely well financially. And I managed to get myself into a company. I was rejected by 3 companies. I didn't look for an advertisement in the newspaper. I approached companies. I finally got a job with a company called the NCR Corporation, National Cash Register, it was called back then. And they told me I was too young to be in sales, so they put me in sales support. But I had a hidden agenda, and that was to be in sales as quickly as I possibly could be. And my boss went on long service leave. I gave myself a promotion. I promoted myself to sales and went out and started actually knocking on doors. And my sales manager, or his boss, noticed, called me into his office one day, asked me what I was doing. I told him, and he had a fit. Because if you can picture this 17-year-old kid in Brisbane out calling on businesses, dressed in my $25 suit, straight out of high school. And he saw that I was serious. And he asked me, what my goal was. And I said, I want to be in sales. He said, well, you're too young, have to be 25. So I know all that, but, I want to be in sales. And he said, well, okay. If you're prepared to be in here at 7 o'clock every morning, I'll give you some training. And the agreement was that if I missed a morning, that would be the last we would do. The agreement was also I had to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I'd spend from 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock. And I did for the next year. And he told me afterwards he thought I would have given up. But I'm not a giver up. I am very persistent. And cut a long story short, I moved into sales within my first 12 months with the company because they gave me a territory, and it wasn't a very good territory, but I started to make some sales, and then I started to make a lot of sales, and then they had a problem. How do you account for sales that are coming from a non-salesperson? So they actually went back and they changed my age in the personnel department. I was the freshest-faced, youngest-looking 25-year-old you've ever seen. I was only 18 at the time. I was in the top 10% of salespeople within the company. And I went to a convention in Las Vegas in that year. And that was my introduction to conventions, speakers, and success. Because I made more money in that first year than, actually probably 4 times the amount of money in that first year than my dad was making. I was quite hesitant about letting my dad know because I was, a bit embarrassed about it. But when he found out, he congratulated me and it went well. Now, money's not what life is all about, but when you're 17 and you got none, it is about that. You tend to measure yourself by, how much money you make. And I know now that's not really the name of the game, but it was important at the time. And it proved to me that I could defy everything that had happened at school where I was told I wasn't very bright. I had a goal, I wanted to be a pilot in school, and my teachers told me I was basically too stupid to do that. I was no good at maths, no good at science, and they said, you'll never be a pilot. And again, that was another goal I said very early, I am going to be a pilot. Don't tell me I can't be a pilot. Similarly, when the company told me I couldn't be in sales, that's like, don't tell me I can't be in sales, I'll show you. And when I was told that I was far too young to be successful, again, watch out. I will do it anyway. So I guess that's a long answer by way of my background that brought me up through business. I became very interested in business at a very early age. I never ever was 25 years of age when I was with that company. I moved on from that company into a sales management role when I was in my early 20s and found that everything I knew about my sales career didn't help me much in sales management because suddenly I had to manage people. But again, I'm a great believer that any skill can be learned. And I simply pursued an avenue of learning to discover how do you become a good manager? How do you manage people? If you can imagine, I was 21, 22 years of age managing salespeople because somebody gave me an opportunity to be in management, and I was managing people, twice my age. And how does a 21-year-old manage a 50-year-old? How do you do that? And the answer is I did it badly until I developed the skill and I became very good at it. And it got me interested. Because interest in helping people grow, because I had grown enormously since school. I had learned a whole lot of skills around selling and around business, and I'd enjoyed a lot of success. And I discovered that as a sales manager, my income and my success was being determined not by my personal effort every day, but by my sales team, the people around me. So I decided, well, the best way for me to be successful is to help my salespeople be successful. And so I guess that led me into the training business that I'm involved in today, and the speaking business. Because I discovered that the skills were transferable. In other words, the things that I knew, I could teach other people. And I continued to research and work out what's working in sales. And I really did a lot of research to discover what was good at it. And I passed these skills along to the people that were working for me. So that involved me training one-on-one and then training with small groups of people at sales meetings. And then while I was still in that sales management role, I was given an opportunity to speak at their national conference. So I had a big audience that time. Which was an interesting time to discover that I was afraid of speaking in front of big audiences. And so if we're talking about adversity and things like that, which I know we are in this interview, I guess that was one of the first things that I encountered. Was I didn't realise I was afraid of public speaking until suddenly I had a big audience. I had to speak to a big audience. And I must admit, I froze. And I battled through it. But again, I discovered something, again, that I didn't know, a new challenge. Speaking in front of an audience. And again, you know, a lot of people, when they encounter adversity like that, they go the other way. They say, that's too hard, you know, I'm obviously not going to be good at that. But I went the other way. It's like, okay, I've got to figure out how to be good at this. And it scared the daylights out of me. But again, I remember Toastmasters and some of these, Rostrum, I think it was, to develop my speaking skills. And got involved in doing that. And then I left that company and I set up a business of my own. And this again was in my early 20s. Because I guess when you're in your early 20s, you think you're bulletproof, you think you know everything. And now I look back, I see how little I actually knew. But I felt that I wanted to be in business for myself. So I took the knowledge that I had in developing salespeople and business people, and I went out in the broader marketplace. And because I was good at sales, I went and sold my services to companies. And the deal was, if I can increase the sales of your people, can I have a percentage of the additional gross profit I generate? If I don't generate any additional gross profit, you don't have to pay me anything. And fortunately, quite a few companies took up my offer, and I became extraordinarily good at doing that. And so much so that some of the companies were paying me very, very large sums of money and wondering why. And I guess I'd been pretty good at negotiating my contracts straight up. But the point is, I was producing extra business for them. And again, that was the beginning of my speaking business and my training business. And then a gentleman approached me and said, look, I've got this American speaker coming to Australia, and you know a lot of salespeople, you know a lot of business people because of your business. I wonder, would you tell your clients about this American speaker? Now, I had discovered things in those days called audio cassettes, as well as books, and I'd already listened to quite a number of American speakers and learned from them. I thought, this is good stuff. But I'd never heard of this man. Very strange name, very strange sounding voice, and they showed me a videotape, and I thought, oh, very strange accent, strange way of speaking, but I listened, and I thought, wow, this guy is profound. The things he's saying about success and how to enjoy more success, quite extraordinary. And some of our viewers may know his name today. His name was James Rowan, or sometimes called Jim Rowan. And I got to work with James Rowan, who was very, very famous at the time. And indeed, I told all my clients about it. The event that was happening in Melbourne, we got 350 people to come to the hotel and pay, I think probably back in those days, $100 each, which was interesting. And the promoter said to me, of course, you know, I'll give you a percentage of the revenues that we get. And 350 times 100 people back in those days, and I'm talking the late 70s, was a considerable amount of money. And what was more important was my learning from it. I got to work with this guy. I got to, you know, go to his seminars, not just in Melbourne, but go in the other states and learn from him. And then this seminar promoter said to me, well, we now have another guy coming out. Would you tell your clients about this other guy? I said, well, who's he? I said, well, it's a fellow called Dr. Dennis Waitley. I said, I've never heard of him. Give me the audios, give me the videos. And again, a remarkable speaker who'd written a book called The Psychology of Winning. And again, this is quite a few years ago. Some of our younger viewers may not even know of these names now, but this was an extraordinarily famous man, and still is, and a very prolific author. And again, I learned so much from this man. It was just extraordinary. And so it went on. I continued to be asked, would I promote another speaker, another name? And it wasn't the money or the business, it was what I was learning from these people. These are famous, extraordinary people to learn from. And the promoter went broke. And I thought, that's no good, because I'm enjoying this. So the speakers actually approached me and they said, we'd love to continue coming to Australia, but the promoter's gone broke. And I wonder whether, if we came for you, would you be interested in sort of taking over representing us in Australia? And that's what happened. My first one was James Rowan. Dennis Waitley came back for me. And by now, not only Melbourne, but Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth. And then there were a range of American speakers. Some of your viewers may have heard of people like Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, Earl Nightingale, the author of The Stranger's Secret, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. These were icons, absolutely extraordinary people. And I built a very successful business, national and international, because I bring them through Australia, 5 cities, 3 cities in New Zealand, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, and by this time, this is the late 80s when I'm doing this. And I guess I'd started to believe my own hype, and I'd started to believe my own publicity, because we had magazines doing stories on me, and I had photographs on the front of BRW magazine and some of these things, as this young guy in his early 30s by now who was doing some pretty extraordinary things. And if you're not careful, you start to believe your own hype and your own publicity. You start to think you're important. And I think I probably did at that stage. And I think sometimes when things are going well and adversity comes along, we sometimes wonder why, and it's extraordinarily painful, particularly if you've got a big ego and you think you've got it made. And here I am in my early 30s, driving this magnificent white Jaguar and living in this beautiful home and travelling nationally and internationally. By now I've got 2 young children. And some of your viewers may not remember this, but in 1989 we had an airline dispute in Australia. And if you can imagine what it would be like in Australia if all the airlines stopped flying tomorrow. Full stop, that's it. No more airlines for a year. How that would impact the economy of Australia. Well, it did in 1989. It's exactly what happened. They called it the pilots' dispute, and the pilots wanted more money, and the airlines said no, so the pilots went on strike. And it took more than a year for the planes to start flying again. But the problem is I had 60 staff and quite a big business, and I was in trouble, and I had to make some decisions what to do. And it was the toughest thing to do, to sort of tell all my staff they didn't have a job anymore and start closing all my offices down. And that was pretty hard to take. That was kind of one of the biggest times of adversity in my life up to that point. Up to that point, things have gone pretty well. But again, sometimes I think God taps us on the shoulder and says, hey, try this out for a while. See if this is character building. And it was.